I've been pretty excited for this one because anything made by Yoko Taro is something else. It's special. His first game was Drakengard, which, if you'd never played that one, oh boy. I guess he was getting sick of, the goody two-shoes heroes in most video games and media in general, I guess. I mean, I guess maybe he was sick of like the plucky shonen protagonists, whatever, I don't know. But he decided, what would happen if I made a main cast of just absolutely horrible people? So he decided to make this fun dragon flying game with, this cast of absolutely just awful characters. I mean, they shoehorned in like, Dynasty Warriors type gameplay, which did not work out. It was not good. I played it. It's not good. The dragon parts are fun, but the rest, Anyway, so he's got his main cast of just awful people, and like one character who's not evil or like a bad person, but just kind of annoying because it's an insufferable child. Because of course, and that game was all well and good. It was kind of a niche game. I don't think it was super popular. It was just kind of like, like it existed. It apparently did well enough to get a sequel, or 2 sequels even, but overall it kind of flew under the radar for most people, even in Japan, I think. However, when Yoko Taro got his second chance to do a game, I guess he decided to do 2 things. Number one, he decided to flip the script. Instead of, awful people, he decided, let's have good people just do the worst, most awful things. And then he also decided, where do I start this off from? Oh, I know. How about the joke ending from my last game? So if you don't know anything about Drakengard, the joke ending, the final ending to the game, in which you and your dragon and the final boss are transported to modern-day Tokyo and battle it out in the skies until the final boss crumbles to ashes and the dragon is shot out of the sky by the Japanese Air Force. Because what? So yeah, that is a joke ending, and it somehow became the canon start to his next game, which of course was NieR. Now in Japan there were 2 versions. There was the what I think was supposed to be the intended version, which is what the remake takes from. And then there was what we got in the West, which was Papa NieR. And he looks like a gremlin, but that's kind of beside the point. I think there were like a couple reasons why they chose Old Man for the American release. Number one, maybe American audiences could relate to it better because I guess we like father figures more. We like daddies. Anyway, and I don't know. I guess people in the West just find like a father-daughter relationship more interesting. Just look how good Last of Us did. I kind of agree there that in the West people like that more, and the brother-sister thing is more like it's more like an Asian thing. But you can clearly tell it was intended for the brother-sister thing because it just, I guess there's stuff that's cut or alternated because you've got the old man, and then also there was some westernizations to it. There's a gay character that's no longer gay, or at least it's not nearly as explicit. Which this was 2010. This was like right before like people started really being like, gay people maybe can have rights and get married. But anyway, it was westernized, whatever that means. But I did play the original version, which in Japan was NieR Gestalt. The other one was NieR Replicant, which is what the remake is. The original I liked. Now, when I was introduced to it, I was told, you gotta play this game, but keep in mind that it is a 7 out of 10 with a story that's 11 out of 10. Which, I'm sure, why not? I like a good story. Let's go for it. And, I played it, and it indeed was a 7 out of 10 game. You know, the combat, at least in the original, the combat was not very fluid. It was like, well, they clearly had ideas, but it couldn't be fully realized. It was, you know, most of the way realized, but just not quite there. But either way, it was a good experience, and, you know, it goes places. But then, you know, Automata came out, or is it Automata? I don't think anyone's decided. I feel like I've played it, and I feel like I've heard both within it, which is the weird part. I really don't know. Although I think I remember the last thing they say in the game is Automata, so maybe I'll say that. I don't know. Anyway, once I found out that NieR Replicant was getting a remake, I was like, you know, I enjoyed the original. I really enjoyed Automata. I'm gonna jump on this remake because why wouldn't I? And I also found out, hey, they fixed up the combat a little bit, and you know, they added an extra episode to the story. Like, yes, please, absolutely. So starting it up, you can immediately tell a lot of like the graphical fidelity is way up. You know, I wouldn't say it's like this. Oh, it's not like it feels like a next gen game. I mean, it's on the PS4. It feels like a PS4 game. I mean, I've seen what the PS5 has to offer. It does not feel like a PS5. It feels like a PS4 game. It came out on PS4. It was intended to be PS4. I would say it still kind of sometimes feels like a PS3 game or an Xbox 360. Did it come out for both? I don't even remember. But it definitely feels like a, I guess by this point, a last gen console game. You know, again, the models, or like the textures and everything, like that's improved greatly. It looks a lot better. But the animations don't really hold up. It seems like either they didn't do the translation for the animations very well, or they're just janky. Which, you know, not a huge issue, I guess. Whatever. But, you know, then you start playing and it immediately feels better. Your combos are improved a little bit. I think before, I could be wrong, but I think before you only got one combo per weapon type. Or you got like two combos. You got your light and your heavy. But I could be wrong. I don't remember. But the combos were not great as far as I remember. But now you got just a couple more options. I think pressing and holding didn't do anything before, but again, I could be wrong. But now it does. You know, the combos aren't incredibly diverse, but they do their job. You've got better dodging. Just overall, better enough. Better enough that I would expect for a remake. Another thing I noticed pretty quickly was a lot of the music was redone. That's like the one thing. Well, music and voice lines, I guess. Voice lines, alright, sure. The music, though, I was kind of not super thrilled when I started hearing the redone music. It's just, you know, maybe I'm just like a music purist, or maybe I have too much nostalgia for the other ones, even though I only like played the first one like, actually it's been like 5-6 years by now. I don't even know. But yeah, maybe I just have too much nostalgia for the old versions of the songs. There are like a couple of instances where you can clearly hear that the singers, or at least like one of the singers in one of the songs, is definitely either a different person or like older. So like their voice is a little different and their intonations are just off. So if you listen to it side by side with the original, it's just not quite right. And you know, maybe it's just me. I liked a lot of the original versions of the songs better. They could have like, I don't know if they can touch those up. I'm not like a music person, but maybe they could have touched those up a little more instead of just completely redoing every track. Granted, a couple of the tracks do sound better, and I think there's some new tracks. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there's a couple new tracks at the very least. And those sound great. You know, a lot of times it's like passive background music anyway, so you probably won't notice as much. But it's like, if you're paying attention, it's just enough where it bothered me personally. Again, it's not a huge gripe, it's just kind of like a minor nitpick. The music's still great. You got the made up like gibberish language, which I absolutely love. And I'm such a nerd that I've memorized a couple of the songs, even though they're in this garbage made up gibberish language. But they're just that good. I mean, I think this might be one of my favorite soundtracks of ever, and you know, that's saying a lot. I don't know if it's my absolute favorite, but it's way up there. Like, way up there. Other than that, I think for the most, there's like a couple additions, and then there's like the extra episode in the second half of the game. Okay, so in the first half of the game, you play as young NieR, and you just go through it. It's whatever. It's just like a, you know, plucky anime protagonist going through the motions of saving the day, helping people, doing random odd jobs. But oh my god, oh, hold on. Before I get to the rest of the game, the side quests though, oh my god, there are so many great side quests in this game. You know, there's a couple where it's just like, collect these items and whatever, go have fun. Or like, bring this to this person without getting hit. There's like 4 fragile delivery quests. It's either 3 or 4. There's so many, and it's like, oh, I hate these so much. Because they're just annoying, because I feel like they've put at least one obstacle in the way of each quest of those. Like, where you have to either run through it or go way around and out of your way. It's just enough to be annoying. But, I mean, overall, they're not too hard, but it's just like, it's just irritating. Anyway, onto the game. So, you've got, anyway, onto the, you know, the main game. So, you've got NieR, who's protecting his sister Yona, and they're living in a little house in this village, and he's doing, like, odd jobs so that they can pay their way, he can buy her medicine, blah, 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 and there's these creatures called shades, and you have to fight them and defeat them. And the existence of them is kind of a mystery. It's, you know, it's not really explained for quite a while, what they are, where they come from, but all you really need to know is NieR really, really hates the Shades. Think Eren Yeager and his hatred of the Titans. It's a lot like that. Like I know you're probably thinking like, oh yeah, he really hated Titans. Like, no, a lot like that, if you get what I mean. I'm heavily implying something here. But, you know, don't let me spoil you. If you're going to play the game, I'd recommend playing it. Because, you know, once you find out the deep lore to this, oh my god, it is phenomenal. Anyway, you go through the first half of the game, you fight in the Shades, you meet a couple new friends. Kaine is an absolute queen, spelled with a K and a W, and a double E and an N. She is a queen, and she slays, literally. And then later in the story you meet Emil, and he's this young child who can turn stuff to stone by looking at them. And that's basically your main, well, that's not quite your main cast. Early on, you meet Grimoire, I can't talk apparently. You meet Grimoire Weiss, spelled with a W, like the German word for white, you know? Anyway, he is your magic book, and he's your magic system. You know, I'd say for like the first, what is it, like 30 minutes to an hour? I don't remember, I didn't like keep that much track of it. But for like the first smallest section of the game, you don't have him, but then you fight the first boss, and then you get him. And he's your magic system, and once you get him, the game really opens up, because pretty much every time you beat a boss, you get a new form of magic. Now, like I said, this game was a 7 out of 10. And what really saved it, what made it go from like a 3 or a 2 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10 is the magic. Without that, it would have been terrible. You have so many spells, and the only problem I have with how many spells there are is how much you probably won't use a lot of them very frequently. I mean, there's so much variability. You've got a spell that's really good at knocking armor away. You've got one that's got decent range. You've got one that's very good, like, consistent damage, but it doesn't do a whole lot, but it's good, like, oh yeah, this will do damage while you're attacking and doing whatever. And it's also got some range. You've got some spells for like just blocking magic attacks, and I mean, you've got a little bit of everything, and it's kind of great how versatile the magic is. And again, I think it saves the combat. Or at least for the original, it saved the combat. In this, it just enhances it. Now, the second half of the game is where things really start to open up. You know, after the first segment of the game, which takes a good while, you get to go through the second half of the game. And one thing you should know about Yoko Taro games is he really likes multiple endings. And as such, to get all the endings in this game, you're going to have to play multiple times through that second half of the game. Now, on the plus side, so the first time you play through the second half of the game, it's just normal. You play through it like you did the first half. It's fine, whatever. The second time you play through, everything kind of changes. I'm pretty sure your damage numbers go up. I mean, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure your damage numbers go way up. A lot of the fights and bosses and just enemy encounters in general get a lot faster. Or at least that's how it felt for me. Maybe it's because I upgraded a couple of my weapons a lot, but I don't know. But yeah, that second half of the game will go a lot faster the second, third, fourth time through. And yes, if you want all the endings, you're gonna have to play through multiple times, because you know, after the first time after you get the first ending, the second ending, the second half of the game with the second ending is where perspective changes. And you know, if you're worried about spoilers, now's the time to leave, go play the game, and then come back. Because if this gets spoiled once for you, it will not have the same effect. So absolutely go play it, especially if you want to be depressed. Okay, let me get into it. The second half of the game is where you get to basically hear what Kaine hears, which is you get to hear what the shades are saying, because you know she's possessed by a shade, so she can understand shades. And what Yoko Taro wanted to do with this game was, I guess to put it simply, this game, he was inspired to make this game because of the events of 9/11. Because of course that's what inspires him. 9/11, a national tragedy from another country that he doesn't live in. Oh man. But yeah, so he thought, how could someone do something so awful? How could someone kill thousands of people just like that and feel no remorse? And the conclusion he came to was they must be absolutely sure of themselves that they are in the right, even if they're not. And that's kind of where the perspective changes in the second half of the game, especially after the first ending. Because once you get through the game the first time, that's when you find out that the shades are just humans. In fact, they were the original humans, and you know, the replicants, which are the humans that are in the world now, they're not real people, because they were the bodies of the people who gave up their souls so that they could survive, because of all this deep lore stuff in the back, which I really hope they make a game on that, because there's so many events, and Yoko Taro likes to do all sorts of stuff like a stage play, and just he likes to do a lot of side stuff that's very important to the lore, but that he doesn't like to put into something significant. It's kind of like Kingdom Hearts, but worse and better in some ways, because you know, you don't have to know it to enjoy the story to his games, but if you want all the lore, you have to look at all of it. But yeah, I hope they do make like a prequel to NieR, because that would be exciting. Anyway, yeah, you find out the shades were humans, and because replicants and shades, because replicants can't understand the shades, and because shades end up going crazy if they're outside their bodies for too long, it's just a slaughter fest. And you know, because NieR wants to protect his sister, he just kills tons of shades. So he's basically committing a genocide on humans. And it's like, oh no. I mean, there's at one point where you're killing children, you're killing babies. There's even more like depressing stuff. Like there was one point where I was playing through the NieR Replicant remake, and I cried for like the first time. I sad cried for the first time in like 10 years. It wasn't very much, but it was enough where I was like, what? Why am I crying? I don't understand. I haven't done this. I didn't do this the first time. What the hell? But yeah, this game will make you feel depressed. I was actually, you know, my fiance was around when I was playing this, and there was a lot of, I hate this game. I don't ever want to play it. It's too depressing. So, that was fun. Fun for me anyway. I love me some depressing stuff. Again, the change between the old man and the young NieR, that's a little different. Everything feels a little different because of that. But you know, I mean, a lot of the redone voice lines are fine. NieR as a character, as a young man character, is fine. Everything I think was really well executed. Again, I'm nitpicky on the music, but whatever. Everything is about as great as I remember it, which is pretty great. But because this is a remake / remaster, or whatever it is, it's version 1.2 something. I don't know, whatever the square root of 1.5 is, because of course Yoko Taro needs to be cheeky. I don't know. Regardless, we got some new stuff in this game. Okay, there's one thing I think was in the original that I never did, which was the, I don't remember what it was called, recycled vessel, I think, but I don't know how it worked in the original. But in this one, I think in the original it was like a DLC, but in this one it's just, you know, everything's included, whatever. But in the DLC, in the recycled vessel stuff, you, rather than play as young NieR, you get to play as old NieR. And I don't know if they brought the voice actor back to do one or two lines, or if they just ripped it from the old game. I don't know, but you know, that's really the only difference. You just play as old NieR, and you do a bunch of challenge areas. It's about it. It was fine. It was fun. I had a good time with it. It was a nice little challenge, unless you're over leveled for the first two, in which case it just, you breeze through it. But whatever. Yeah, overall, there's not much to say about it. It does, however, get you 3 new weapons that were not in the original, which harken back to Drakengard, and they look like the dragon from Drakengard, all 3 of them. There's one of each weapon type, you know, a one-handed sword, two-handed sword, and the spear. And then what else did they add? There's the new storyline area where kind of in between segments of, or maybe it's either in between segments or like near the end of the second half of the game, when you're like gathering the pieces of the whatever it was. I don't know, it was like a pentagon thing. I don't remember what it was called. Whatever the key to the Shadow Lord's castle is. They added in this new thing where you go to Seafront and you fight this giant shade, and it's a new boss. And you know, because Yoko Taro likes to experiment a lot, there's a few segments of like NieR, both original and what we got now. There's some segments where gameplay perspective changed a little bit, and like in Emil's mansion, there was it was more like a Resident Evil style, and it was like, oh, that's different. Not bad, but it's different. And in this one, it's you know, I think a couple of segments in the game there's like a top down. In this one, it's just like a side scroller, whatever, and you just kind of go left, right, up, down, whatever. You explore this abandoned ship, and it's kind of spooky. Like, I mean, it's not very long, but it's like, it's interesting. And then you fight this boss, and the storyline for that one was kind of predictable, but it was still good. It was still good. It was still depressing, because of course it is. I enjoyed it. And the boss, the first time you fight the boss, there's no way you can like beat it all the way. The second time, I don't know if you can, but it's really difficult. And then the third time, it makes it way more easy for you to actually fight it off till the very end and beat it in like a special way that isn't, you know, the most depressing way, which is like, I don't know. It works, I guess. Honestly, I kind of prefer the not beating it like extra hard, because that makes it more depressing. It makes it more depressing. God, I sound like such a downer. But yeah, anyway, so that extra episode was pretty good. And then, of course, the other big addition to the game was the ending E, which, you know, original game had endings A through D, and then now it has ending E. Now, in order to get ending E, you gotta get endings A and B, and then when you have the option to do either ending C or D, you pick the option for ending D. Then you have to erase your save file, which is what it did in the original, but now it kind of keeps it in the background. It doesn't completely erase your save file, it kind of keeps it in the back. It's still there. It's still there somewhere. Keeps all your data. But then you have to start over. You start your game over from the very beginning. Then you get to the boss fight with Hook. And then that's when you get ending E. And you get this entirely new gameplay segment with Kaine. And oh my god, it feels so good, and I wish I could play her more. But the segment overall is kind of short, all things considered. I mean, it's not like short, but it's just, it teased me enough where it's like super hype, but I just wish I could have played a little longer, or I would actually like play an entire game with her as the protagonist. And anyway, so you play as Kaine. She kind of vaguely remembers NieR, but not actually, because her memory was wiped, because everyone's memory was wiped of him. And she goes into the tree in the woods, and there's like machines under it, and then she starts fighting off these machines, and then you get the you get a return to. Okay, so secondhand spoilers if you played the original but haven't played the new stuff. This is where it gets like weird, and this is where more spoilers happen. So, you know, just so you know. Anyway, so you get to the bottom of the tree, and what's this? 2 robot children? Oh, these are the actors for 9S and 2B from Automata. Huh? Kind of weird. And then you keep going through it, you fight a boss, and then you get to go into like this. You get to go into like this white area, which is very reminiscent of Automata, whatever. And it's like, oh, that's very familiar. And then you do kind of like the final boss fight with the Shadow Lord. It's kind of like a redo of that, but whatever. And then you go into another area that's even more like Automata, because it's like the 9S hacking minigame. That's what it looks like. And oh, it's so cool because all the effects and everything are different, and then you get to another boss fight with Hook, and this is where it gets even better. You get to play as Kaine with Grimoire Vice by your side. Ooh, it's so good. It's so good. There's cool effects on all of Vice's magic, and it's just so hype. And then once you finish all that, you get your original save file back. You can go back to ending C and D again, and then once you get ending E, and you go back into your old save file, you can then use Kaine's sword, or like chainsaw swords, not chainsaw, but like, or whatever you call it, or like really jagged weapons, whatever they are. But it's a one-handed sword. It's got max damage. If you upgrade it at all, it'll just get magic capabilities or whatever, and it's pretty cool. I guess since I'm into spoiler territory by this point, I might as well also discuss the characters. I really like the characters in this game. NieR himself is kind of basic, I guess. So he's still a good character, but he's kind of basic. Yona, also kind of basic. She's just like, you know, the precious cinnamon roll that needs to be protected, and NieR is just like the older brother who's like plucky shonen protagonist, and it's like, okay, we've seen this trope before. I mean, he's very murderous about shades, but other than that, he's pretty basic. Kaine and Emil are where things like really actually no, not just Kaine and Emil, but Kaine, Emil, and Weiss are where things really shine, because they make the game what it is. Emil, I guess Emil is the least interesting of the three, but he's still quite interesting. As I said before, he is gay. They more outright say it in this. They pretty explicitly state it. But it's not like bashed over your head. It's not like, I'm gay, so you need to see a gay sex scene to know that I'm gay. Gay, 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 gay. And it's like, no. They kind of offhandedly say it once, in like one segment, and then I think past that, there's a little bit implied, but it's very subtle. And I really like that. I really like when, you know, it's a part of the character, but it's not bashed over your head. Speaking of that kind of representation, being there but not being bashed over your head, but still being important to the character, Kaine. She is unisex in some way. I don't know exactly how, because it's not blatant and it's barely apparent in the game. It's kind of like, you know, people suspected things, and then in an interview, Yoko Taro was like, yes, this is the case. But because of how her body is, she's kind of shamed by society, and people bully her and throw rocks at her when she's a child. And the only person that cares about her is her grandma. And that story is just, it's so sad but so touching, and kind of shows how she got to be as abrasive as she is in adulthood, or at least her late teen years. I don't know how actually old she is, but she's awesome. She's just like cold hard, swears a lot, mean, but, you know, still heart of gold. I like that. And then there's Grimoire Weiss, who is your sidekick. Like, you've got your other two sidekicks, but Grimoire Weiss is your buddy. He's your number two, and he is sassy. He's full of himself. He is smart, but like sometimes he tries to be so smart that he just kind of comes off as dumb sometimes, and it's the best. It's so good. I think one of the best interactions you can get with him is the fishing minigame, which apparently tripped up some reviewer when the game first came out. So much so that I think they give you a little bit more help with it this time around. But if you get far enough in the fishing minigame, Weiss will like give you advice, and he'll try to help, and then you're like, shh, you're scaring the fish away. And he's like, oh, sorry. And then at some point, like, he stops talking, and NieR's like, huh, you're kind of quiet today. He's like, well, I don't want to scare the fish away. And he's like, no, I just thought it was kind of weird. And then Weiss goes, well, permission to speak freely then? He's like, no. He's like, well, then what would you have me do? It's such a great like minor interaction. There's just so many of those in this game. Like, it really fleshes out the characters and makes them feel organic, and just, I love this. Okay, so I had to stop making the video at this point because something came up, and I don't remember where I was going. So, I mean, if I'm being honest, I could probably talk about this for a while. I mean, I've already been going for almost 40 minutes, so, yeah. I might as well stop here. Just go play the game. It's good, the story's good, the music's good, the characters are good. It's all just so good. You know, granted, like I said, the gameplay isn't incredibly revolutionary. It's kind of basic aside from the magic, which is pretty great. But it's not Automata. It's definitely not. It's not that fluid. Let me put it this way. The gameplay is very serviceable for what's around it. What's around it is the main attraction. The gameplay just seeks to enhance it. So yeah, overall, this game's fantastic. I would highly recommend. So I'm just going to cut myself off here. Thank you for listening. Go ahead, click all the buttons, and I hope you have a great day.